Are you looking to design your own call to actions for streaming YouTube videos or general content creation? I'm gonna show you guys how to make these custom call to actions by the end of this video. So let's just get started with it, huh? So right off the bat, I do want to say I'm using Adobe After Effects in this tutorial, so feel free to follow along when we dive in. Also, the tips and techniques I'm showing you guys today in this tutorial will allow you to create your own shapes, colors, icons, fonts, and text. So once we get through this tutorial, feel free to use the techniques to create some call to actions or animations in general more unique to your own brand. And one more thing before we get started, I will be using a free plugin today called Mr. Horse. Mr. Horse is an awesome animation plugin for Adobe that offers some really clean motion presets and very useful tools. So I'll have a link for the free software in the description below. And as always, I will be putting the finished product on my Gilded server inside of the free design group. So take a look on there for these call to actions, some other CTA packs, some panel packs, emotes, streaming overlays, you name it. And of course, as always, they are going to be for free. Right, so here we are inside of After Effects, and I want to show you, I've created a YouTube call to action already. And real quick, I mean, for those of you who don't know, a call to action is pretty much just a reminder for your viewers to either A, remind them that you have a YouTube or a Twitch or a Twitter, and B, that you want them to go take the action of following you, subscribing to you, generally checking out your other platforms. So what I'm going to do is, instead of creating another YouTube one to show you guys, I'm going to create one for Twitch. But the good thing is, once you create one call to action, it's really just copy and paste into a new composition from there. All right, so first things first, we want to make a new composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to composition, new composition. And I like to create my call to actions with the width of like around 800 and the height of around 200. And usually I'll do it in 60 FPS. I don't know why the other one's in 30, but you can easily change that. And I usually like to give myself a little extra time. So the composition time will be 15 seconds. Now, typically, they're not going to last 15 seconds. They'll usually last anywhere between 5 and 12 seconds. Usually 12 seconds is usually about where I put mine. And then for the background color, we're just going to use black. I'll show you how to toggle the background on and off so you can see what it looks like when it's transparent anyway. So go ahead and name the comp. We're going to name this one just Twitch, and I'm going to hit OK. So here we are inside of our timeline here. I'm going to do layer, new, and I'm going to do shape layer. So we'll create the main big square first. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the big shape layer. So right about there. And then we want to take our align tool and we want to align this to the middle. All right. So once we have that in our timeline, so I want to drop this down to rectangle, and I want to do transform rectangle, and I'm going to do skew to something like, we'll do 20 degrees or pixels or whatever it is. So I'll close that up so you guys can see. So like I said, once again, we're working backwards. So once we get to about 2.5 seconds is when that final box should be at its full final form, I guess, if you will. So we're going to start adding some keyframes. So the way we did all this is through keyframes. So in order to do keyframes, what we want to do is we want to actually I want to open this back up, and I want to go back into the skew. I'm going to add this. If you hit this little stopwatch button, it adds a keyframe, and that's putting a keyframe at that point in time in the timeline. So at 2.5 seconds, it knows that it wants to be skewed 20 degrees. So I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. So like I said, in After Effects, I like to work backwards. It just makes more sense. So we're going to put that at 0. So now it kind of goes like that. Okay. Also, here's another trick. If you hit U on the keyboard, it's going to, when you're selected on that layer, it's going to show all the layers that have keyframes on there. So very handy. So real quick, I'm going to rename this. It's always good to stay organized. I'm going to rename this to main square. All right. Now we're going to hit S for scale. And once again, we're going to work backwards. So right there, we're going to be at our main scale, and I'm going to put a keyframe there. And then here, so it starts off as a thin bar, comes out as a thin bar, then opens to a wide bar, and then it skews. So we want that thin bar. So we don't want to, if you start messing with the skew, it's going to do the whole thing. So I want to unlink those, and I want to make it kind of a thin bar, right? Something like that. So it goes up and then it skews. So let me make sure that's the same thing I did here. Yep, kind of goes out, out. And obviously that animation is cleaner. We'll show you how to get that here in a second. So there we go. Okay, so we're going to do another scale. And what this one's going to do, and every time you have your keyframe on and you make an adjustment, it's going to mark a new keyframe. So right here on this scale, on the left side here, we're going to bring that one to 0. So right now we should have it do that, that, and then that. And that's perfect. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So real quick. So we downloaded Mr. Horse. And the first thing I want to do is, if you notice that this anchor point is not in the middle of the box. So a handy tool that Mr. Horse has, if you go up here to your window and you go to Window, Animation Composer, this is the little Mr. Horse plugin box. And we're going to go over here to More Tools, and I'm going to go Anchor Point Mover. And I'm going to, when you're selecting on a layer and you hit center the anchor point, it's going to center the anchor point to the middle of that. So it's just a good tool to have. So, all right, so let's look at our animation so far. All right, now I'm going to hit U on the keyboard. I'm going to look at the keyframes and see how they're all lined up. So we can start it sooner. We can start it at the beginning of the timeline. And I'm looking at speeds of everything right now. So right as it fully expands, I want to move the skew keyframes right there. So I'm going to have that skew just a tiny bit after. Okay, so that's looking good, but the animation is just a little bit jerky. So what we want to do is I want to highlight all of these keyframes, and I'm going to hit F9 on the keyboard. And what that does is it cleans up the animations a little bit, makes them ease into each other a little bit more. So now if you notice, they're kind of easing into each other much more. And you could go into depth and start messing with the graph editor and mess with like the beginning and end speed and stuff like that. But we're not going to do that. We're actually going to use Mr. Horse again. If we go down here to More Tools, we go to Keyframe Wingman. And what that'll do is it pretty much, if we highlight these keyframes and we drag these up, what that's doing is it's making it, it's changing the graph editor for us without having to go into the graph editor. So it starts off slow and ends slow, and then it's fast in the middle kind of thing. So let's see how that animation plays out now. So see how it starts slow and ends fast, and then it kind of even ends slow. So like it helps when you make noises with it, like whoosh. Whereas before it was like beep, doop, boop. You know what I mean? It's like whoosh now. So we're going to do the same thing. I always like, if I use 95 as the digit on here, I'm going to use 95 on the rest of the animations just so they're all the same. So what I'm going to do is highlight these, and I'm going to space these pretty evenly because I want the animations to all be pretty even, if that makes sense. I mean, they don't have to be perfect. So I'm going to highlight those, and I'm going to do 95. You got to re-click it every time. Every time you make a new keyframe, highlight the keyframes you want and click it again. I noticed. I don't know. I mean, that might just be in my head, but all right. So now our animation's looking a lot cleaner. It's like whoosh, whoosh, woof. You know what I mean? I don't know why it helps to make noises, but it does. So make some whooshing noises when you're making your animations. All right. Now that's looking much more solid. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to make this skewed square Twitch's purple color. Here's a little tip. If you look up, like I Googled Twitch branding, right? So they have marketing materials or branding suggestions for creators. Twitch has its own branding website where it tells you, what fonts they use. And they even have this little thing called download brand asset. That way you can have the full size logos. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. And I want to change the color of this. So I'm going to go to Effect, Generate, and Fill. And then you get a little red box under your effects up here. It's always default as red FF0000. I'm going to hit Control V and make it Twitch's nice purple color. All right. And that's looking pretty solid. So Before I said I would show you how to remove the background. So there's this little box under your window right here called Toggle Transparency Grid. And what that'll do is it'll show you what it's going to look like transparent. Now, technically, there's no black background as a layer in here. So this is transparent. But sometimes it helps to show that transparent background to see what it's going to look like on lighter colors and stuff like that. I usually prefer to keep that on just because it makes it a little bit easier to see. All right, so now that we got our animation there, what I want to do is real quickly, I just want to find our exit animation. So let's go through this and see how many seconds we want before the animation starts to close itself up. Around 8 seconds should be enough time. So I want the full composition to be around 10 seconds. So I'm going to hit Control K for the composition settings, and I'm going to change the duration to 10 seconds there. And I'm going to hit OK. And let's see how that goes. So I kind of want to start bringing it in around 7.5 seconds. So what we're going to do is we have all the keyframes here for the intro. So what we're going to do is kind of just start reversing that. So the first thing that happens, or the last thing that happens, is the box gets skewed. So let's skew the box back to normal. So I want to add another keyframe right here at the 20 degrees. So we're going to add another 20 degree there. And I'm going to look at the distance of here and how long that takes. And that's about it right there. And then we're going to bring it to 0. So let's see how that looks. All right, so that's looking really good. All right, so now once we get there, we want it to kind of go back into that thin line. So we'll set a keyframe there for the scale, and one for, I'm actually going to go and look and see what the dimensions on the scale were here. So it's 109% on the second. What they are, they're axes. So you have your X and your XY, but when you make it a 3D layer, you'll have three different numbers here. So on 2D layers, it's showing, I think, X and Y, but if you made it a 3D layer, now you have X, Y, and Z. Don't quote me on that. Just keep that in mind. So we're going to add another keyframe there, and it was 100, and this second number was at 9%. So it goes back to that thin square. So we're going to go, whoop. All right, and then we're going to highlight this, and we're going to make our number 95 again on Keyframe Wingman. Like I said, this is just a shortcut way of using the graph editor. So what the graph editor does, and you can see the graph editor does, what the graph editor does is you can see how you can manipulate the speeds. So you'll see it's slow and then it gets faster. So when you mess with the Keyframe Wingman, you can see that it's messing with the graph editor. This is your standard, just straight shot, straight speed. And then when you bring it all the way to 100, it starts slow, goes fast, and slow kind of thing. So we want to be at, I think, 95. So yeah, 95 there. So let's get out of the graph editor. It's just a cheater tool, really, is what it is. Not really. It's working smarter, not harder. All right, so all right, now we got to bring that in. So we'll make a keyframe here that is 0. Nope, sorry. We're going to go 0 on that axis there. So now we know that the end of our timeline is right there. So let's play this out and see how everything goes. Okay, now we got some information coming in here. We got Twitch, or we could even say follow on Twitch, and then we'll have the little heart, and then boom, it goes away, and that's looking pretty solid. All right, so we're in the middle. We're about 5 seconds into our timeline here, and I'm going to add some text. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do layer, new, and then we're going to do text. I prefer using my own brand font, which is called Charlevoix Pro. Let's do that, and let's make sure our vertical spacing is set to 0, and let's bring the font size to like 40. And we're going to take our align tool. If you can't find your align tool, you're going to go to Window and then just hit Align. You're going to go to Window, Align. Everything's in alphabetical order. Mine's in a weird place right now. Sometimes I usually like to keep it up top, but I don't know. It got messed up somehow. So I'm going to center that to the middle. I'm going to center it to the middle on both axes. So now it says follow on Twitch. So I'm going to make the font size, and here's our character tab right here. Let's move this keyframe wingman. We can close that, and whenever we want to open the animation composer, we know that we just hit window, animation composer, and everything can pop up. So I'm going to make the font size here 50. No, let's do 45. And once again, I'm going to take my window. I want to do the anchor point mover for Mr. Horse. And I'm going to center that right there on the text. So we'll align it again. There we go. Okay, so follow on Twitch. And let's create an animation for the text here. So what I want to do is I want to have it, I want to make a position keyframe. So when I'm selected on the layer, I hit P for position. And now you can start moving the position of it. I kind of want it to drop in. From the top. Now, what I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to work backwards. So I want it to be in completely in the middle, right about there. So I'm going to make a keyframe right there, and I'm going to come back a little, and I'm going to move it up just out of the way. So, all right, now you can see that you can see it up here. We don't want that. We want it to look like it's falling into it, and you can't see it waiting up there ready to come in. So what we need to do is we need to create a mask. So I'm doing it this way so I can kind of show you guys how to use a mask. Masks are really important for call to actions because you end up using masks quite often. So we're just going to utilize the shape layer of the purple square as our mask. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to duplicate that mask, and I'm going to rename it to mask. And I'm going to put the mask layer right above the text layer. So right now it's not doing anything because it's not technically set as a mask yet. So what I want to do is you want to click on the text layer, and you want to do, if you can't see all the options here that I have, you're gonna see a little toggle switch modes. So right now I want to be looking for the track matte mode, and I want to change that to alpha matte mask. Now it hides the top layer automatically. So it's going to hide that square. It's not like there's two squares there. It's just going to mask it. So now when you see it come down, it's going to be masked right there. So that's looking pretty good. So let's look and see how that plays out. Now it comes in a little early, and it's also got a really lame, slow animation. So once again, what we want to do is make it a little bit longer. I want to hit F9 to enable the easy ease, and then selected on those two, we're going to bring that up to 95. And what that's doing, once again, is it's changing the speed of the animation. So let's see how that plays out. That's a little quick. So I'm going to take that second one and drop it down. And then I'm going to put the Twitch word logo in there. And we'll see how that looks. We're going to add another position keyframe right here to move it, to start moving it down right here. So this weird thing happens when you start adding more than two position keyframes sometimes. You see how it's moving on its own, and you might be asking yourself, why is it moving? So what you want to do is you want to highlight all the keyframes, and you want to right click, and you want to go to keyframe interpolation and change the spatial interpolation to linear, and hit OK. Now it's not going to move in there. Okay, so now let's move this in a little bit. And let's have it exit right there. And then we'll go back to 95. Back to what I was talking about earlier. I downloaded the Twitch brand assets here. So I'm looking for the word mark file. And I'm looking for the white one. So they supplied a PNG image, it looks like right here. And I'm going to put that one on top. And we're going to bring that percentage to 5%. And boom. So now we got a nice looking Twitch logo in there. And once again, we're going to start working backwards. Actually, I think this one, I want it to scale up. So I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm going to add a keyframe right there. And I'm going to add a 0 keyframe right there. So it's going to kind of go like that. All right, looking at this animation, I think that's pretty cool, but I feel like I want to swap that. I feel like it would make more sense to show the Twitch, and then that goes away, and then it says follow on Twitch. So I'm going to swap those. So I'm going to bring these over, And I'm going to bring this way. So right when I get there, kind of, you know what? Maybe we could match it with the way when the Twitch logo scales up and the box skews. If they went together, it would be probably very appealing. So I'm gonna hit U on the keyboard, and to navigate through your keyframes, there's little arrows next to these keyframe placers. Now it'll go to the previous keyframe or the next or the last one, you know what I mean? So just use these arrows if you're trying to be exactly on a keyframe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to put that one there. So now let's see what it looks like when that all happens. That's pretty sweet. So as it pops up, it goes like that. And that hangs in there for a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have that scale down. So we're going to drag these just to the end there. And then right about here, I'm going to add a scale keyframe, and I'm going to do a little animation where it comes out and then back. So it's at 19% now on the scale. So I'm going to hit 20. It's a subtle jump, and then it's going to be at 0. So this is what your keyframe is going to look like. And actually, I want to reverse that. I want this one to be closer, and I want it to take longer to disappear. Not quite that long. So we're going to bring these all in, and we're going to go like that. We're going to highlight all these and do 95 again. So I kind of want this one to last a little bit longer, and I want the scale to go more than 20%. Let's try 21%. Okay, so now when we do follow on Twitch, okay, and it's coming in right here. So let's actually move this in. There we go. Follow on Twitch, and now we can have it start exiting. There we go. That's looking pretty sweet. I like that. I like it a lot. You know, this kind of looks like it's not popping that much. You can go into your effects and presets and add, I already have it here. You want to type in drop like that, and you'll see drop shadow. So we're going to add a bit of a drop shadow. I think that works well. So we're going to bring the softness up to like 10 just to make it, yeah, that's much better. I like that look right there. That's looking good. Animation looks good. Follow on Twitch. And it goes away. Boom. There you go. Okay, so now let's look at what that looks like on a transparent layer. You know, this is what it would look like on a lighter background, whether it's like white or gray or, you know, a light color background. Now, one thing you'll notice is that this kind of doesn't pop as much or contrast as well. So what we'll do again with this main square is we'll put a drop shadow on it, just like we did with the text. So we're going to bump up. Now all of our effects controls are going to be over here. Once you drag and drop an effect, all the effects controls are going to be over here. You might have a project window and then an effects window. So I'm going to bump the opacity of that drop shadow to, I usually like to use 75%. I'm going to bring the distance to 2 because I don't want the distance will bring it further away and closer. I don't want it that far because we're going to make it soft anyway. And then we'll just slide the softness up until we find this area where we like it. You don't want it to be too overpowering. You just want it to be noticeable. So now it looks like it's kind of hovering over that. Now I'll turn it off and on so you can kind of see. Now it looks like it's gained some depth, if you will, from what it was before. All right, so now let's take a look at how that renders. Perfect. Follow on Twitch. That would be a nice little animation for your stream. For a YouTube video when you're talking about your stream schedule or talking about what you do on stream, or you're doing a gaming highlight video, you know, that could be within the first 12 seconds of the video, you know, follow on Twitch. The best thing to do now, in my opinion, is if you wanted to make one for Twitter and you wanted to make one for Discord, all that stuff, all you got to do is copy the composition. So we have a composition for YouTube. Here's our YouTube one. And, you know, this one's pretty cool. I ended up liking the Twitch one more. And here's our Twitch one. So there's two separate compositions there. So what you do is go in your project file, and we will find our Twitch composition. And I'm going to hit Control D on the keyboard, and I'm going to rename this to Twitter. So now I have a Twitter composition. So now if I wanted to make a Twitter one, you know, it's just copy and paste from here on. You change the Twitter, you change the Twitch logo to the Twitter bird. And I'll probably just do this real quick and play it and fast forward to show you guys what I'm talking about. Right, so there we go. Just real quick, I just used the template that we did on Twitch for the Twitter one, and then we can do the same for Discord, and the same for Guilded, and the same for Instagram and Facebook and all those sites. So that took a lot shorter amount of time when we're just copying and pasting and using the assets. So here's what the Twitter one looks like. Got the Twitter logo in there, and then that disappears. Follow on Twitter. And nice little exit animation. So now we got a YouTube one, we got a Twitch one, and we got a Twitter one. I will, like I said, be adding a whole pack of this to my Guilded server here shortly. So yeah. All right, so there we go, guys. I hope this tutorial was extremely helpful for you. I hope now you're able to go out and create your own animations or your own call to actions with the tips and techniques that I showed you today. And as always, if you guys want to catch me doing some design stuff live, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/MattKraken. I stream 3 to 4 days a week, on weekdays typically, and I stream around 9 a.m. Pacific time. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that sub button, drop a like, and drop a follow for me over on Twitch. Until next time, guys, I will catch you in the next video. Peace. Much love.